Can I take pictures like this? I'm so nervous. Oh my gosh, okay. Hello everyone, my name is Mo and this is Taking Down the Veil. I have been wanting to start this podcast for about over 2 years now. I came up with the name 2 years ago, and I am definitely being led by God to actually do it now. I bought this microphone last night, and here we are. Taking Down the Veil is a space for transformation. It is a safe space for vulnerability. My goal is to make an impact, but in the most beautiful way, to show you that you can start from the ground up, you can start from scratch and still create something so beautiful. So there's a lot of different reasons why I started this podcast, but the biggest one is in the name, Taking Down the Veil, and it is unfiltered, raw, authentic content, real life lessons that I am learning in real time that I really want to share with you guys because it's something that I did not have growing up. And so, for anybody who has ever felt unheard, unseen, and unvalidated, I am here to change that. So, without further ado, welcome to Taking Down the Veil. I have some notes here because it is my first episode ever. Also, I am practicing on looking at the camera and not at myself. I can't make any promises, but here we are. Today's episode is called No One Is Coming to Save You. I know that sounds a little bit harsh, but trust me, it'll all make sense in the end. Today, we're going to talk about the actual first lesson that started to really shift things for me, and that was no one's coming to save you. I have a question to ask for anybody listening to this. Have you ever sat in silence and hoped and prayed that someone or something would come and drastically change your life, just to realize that no one was coming and there was nothing that was going to happen that was actually going to change things? So my name is Monique. I am 27 years young. I am from New York City, the city that never sleeps. Yes, we love it here. Sometimes we don't because we hear airplanes every 5 seconds and people honking their horns and car alarms, and we're going to do our best to get through this episode and not pay attention to those things. A little bit about my backstory. So, I have a lot of trauma, guys, and I laugh when I say that because I say it so casually, but I think that there are a lot of us that do, and I'm here to share my story to show you guys that you don't have to be defined by that. My mother was very in and out of my life due to addiction. My father was my legal guardian up until the age of 16 when he passed away from lung cancer. Now, my mother, my father, and pretty much every single person in my family had a victim mentality, a scarcity mindset, a woe is me, a I'm right, you're wrong. No one's opinion is valid but my own type of mindset. And so naturally, I fell right into that, right into it. It was inevitable for me to fall into that exact pattern that they were also living. I felt stuck. I think having an absent mother, I was very hyper independent. I don't need anyone. I'll do it myself. And then when my father passed away, I fell apart. Everything changed. I shifted into, how could this happen to me? Why would this happen to me? He was my rock. He was my home. He wasn't perfect. I mean, who is? But he was it for me. And then one day he was it, and the next day he wasn't. He was gone. And everybody in my life from that point on did their best to show up in the ways that they could, but it was not in the ways that I needed as a kid. I wasn't surrounded by people who were emotionally available, people who knew what to do in a situation like that with a kid that's not theirs. And so I fell really badly into a victim mindset after that. And I spent years telling myself that nobody could love me the way my father did. Nobody could take care of me the way my father did. And I stuck with that. I stuck with that. I wouldn't let it go. I couldn't let it go. And so naturally, that poured into every part of my life. I'd be so independent. I don't need anyone. It just got worse and worse and worse. And it turned into anger and resentment. And then eventually I ended up in relationships that mirrored exactly that, whether it was friendships, family members, or, partners. I was stuck in that mentality for so long. And the moment that I actually ended up shifting out of that mindset, there was a few different breakthroughs that I had over the years that really started to change things for me. So when I was 21, I had my first spiritual awakening, is what they would call it. And I started to realize that life didn't have to be a woe is me story. Yet I still lived through the same patterns. But I became more and more aware through the years. I was watching my family members live out the patterns, being very confused by them, but then I would go and live out those patterns also without realizing it. It was autopilot, right? It was autopilot. A few years after that, things started falling apart in my life. I lost relationships with family members, friendships, relationships. It was a literal mess. It was a mess. And so around the age of 25, when I ended up alone in a toxic relationship in Florida with just me, myself, and I sat with myself and I was confused. I was lost. I didn't understand why this was happening again. I was like, oh my gosh. I was like, this isn't the first time this has happened. So what is happening here? Like, why do I keep living out this same story over and over and over again? That was the moment where everything changed. Because I finally recognized that I was living a pattern. And I knew deep down inside that I didn't want to keep living that pattern. And if I continued on the path that I was on, it was going to be a never-ending cycle. And I was going to probably take that pattern to the grave. And I could not stand the thought of that. It literally scared the life out of me. And instead of thinking, why are these things happening to me? I started taking responsibility for everything my life was. I realized it wasn't my fault the way things had turned out as a child. But as an adult, it was my responsibility to choose something different, to choose a better path, and to become more. And so that's exactly what I did. And it was really hard. It was really hard. I faced myself. I was drinking and partying a lot and numbing myself to what I was feeling all those years. And when I had this moment of I need to change, I cut all of that off. I decided to really change. And I just sat with myself every day. Panic attacks, anxiety attacks. I just sat with it. I literally had an identity crisis at 25. It was crazy. I had no friends, no family. I was in a toxic relationship. I was by myself every day because my partner at the time was at work every day. It was just me and my dogs. I really had to face myself. I had no other choice but to face myself. I felt helpless in a lot of different ways. And I like to point this out because feeling helpless is not just one area of your life. Like, it's not just finances, it's not just emotionally, mentally, spiritually. It can be all at the same time. And when you really choose to heal and do better and be better and take responsibility, there's levels to this. I really want to show some love here and some validation, you know, to people who are already on the journey of healing and thinking like, oh my gosh, you know, I just went through this and healed all this, and then there's another thing that comes up, because there's levels to this. There's levels to consciousness, levels to healing, levels to being better and doing better. You're always going to have a new level to unlock. But a lot of the beginning of the healing journey is healing a lot that you were taught in your childhood. And so I started where I was, and I just broke out of, I think, one of the last patterns that I was in, which was the relationship one. This was about like almost 2 months ago, the toxic relationship one. And it's freeing. You know, it's very important to me to say this to you guys, because I know what it feels like to feel lost. I know what it feels like to feel alone, to feel like nobody is coming, but to still hope, you know, to still hope that maybe one day things will be different. Maybe one day somebody will come. Maybe the person that was supposed to raise me will change. Maybe if I just hold on to the hope long enough, my story won't be my story. And I get it. It's exhausting to live in that mentality and to keep living in that pattern, and to think that, you know, maybe one day things will change because of how I think they were supposed to be, in the way that would make me feel validated and seen. But sometimes that's not the case. Sometimes we have to take responsibility for what our life has become. I think everybody should do this, no matter if you had a childhood that wasn't the greatest or not. It's good to take responsibility, because there's magic in that. It's almost like you're looking at yourself and saying, I created this, and although, you know, it's not glamorous, and sometimes it's like, ooh, I did that. Like, wow, okay, cool. And you're gonna have a lot of those moments. But there's also the mentality of, oh my gosh, I get to create this. I get to create my life. I get to change my life. I don't have to keep living in this story of sadness and struggle and the things I don't even like, the things I hate, actually. And you can begin to build this beautiful life that you've always wanted. You are not broken. You're human. And I want you guys to feel validated. You deserve to be validated. Sometimes people just want to feel seen. And that little shift in someone looking at them in the eyes and saying, I see you, could potentially change their entire life. I didn't have that growing up, and so it is so important to me to tell you guys this. But I also say with love that it is your responsibility to change and be better and do better. Once you are aware that there is something happening, it is a choice after that to continue living in a mindset or in a reality you don't actually want. So, I I want to talk a little bit about actionable steps. I feel like that is so important to me, is giving people actionable steps. You know, you hear a podcast like this and you're like, what can I do? Like, what can I do to be better? What can I do to change my circumstances? You know, where can I start without going on Google and searching, what can I do? Or ChatGPT, which ChatGPT is really helpful. But we want to start small. We want to not overwhelm ourselves with this change, because this is only the beginning and this is a journey that you will be on for probably the rest of your life, learning and growing and discovering. And so I want to give you guys actionable steps. So for me, a little bit about my shift is when I was 25 and I had this realization of, oh my gosh, I'm living out a pattern. It started because I have a habit of writing things down since I was young. If I feel something, I write it. If I am curious about something, I'll write everything down, like write all my thoughts down. And so that's what I did. I wrote down everything about my family members. I wrote down everything about my sisters, my grandmother, my brothers, me. I wrote the patterns down. I was like, how are we changing this? How are we going to be better? But it started with me acknowledging that I was walking down this same path as them. Whether it was the mindset, whether it was the addiction, then I chose to break one of those things first. I had already been working on my mindset for a little bit, but not intentionally. And I knew that something that I could do that would really help that was cutting off drinking alcohol for a while. And so that is what I did. So I wrote down the patterns. That's step one. Write down the patterns and be honest, be vulnerable, because you won't know till you know. And you'll be very surprised what you end up writing down when you do choose to just be open and honest about it. The second thing is choose one. Choose one to break. Whatever that is for you. Choose it, stick to it, honor yourself, honor your path. You deserve that. You deserve that freedom. And the third step is to make a promise to meet yourself. Now, the last thing I did was probably the hardest out of all of this. I made a promise to feel. I got really good at suppressing my emotions through my life, pretending like everything was okay, pretending like I didn't need anybody. And I guess I included myself in that. But I did need me. I did need that best version of me. I did need that version of me that I thought was broken. I needed all of me. And so I let myself feel, and it was scary. It was actually terrifying. And I don't mean to say this to discourage you guys. I say this because I would never be here in front of this microphone, with my notes and trying to look at the screen at the same time, trying to figure out how to do this. If I didn't go through all of the things I went through. It was hard, but the other side is so beautiful. It's so beautiful and it's so worth it, guys. I have a quote here, and it says, what's really healing is it's not about becoming someone new. It's about remembering who you were before the pain told you who to be. You don't have to fix everything today, but start. Give yourself the chance to. You deserve that better life. You deserve that chance. But yeah, that is our episode for today, guys. I love you so much. I appreciate you guys so very much for listening, for tuning in. And if this resonated with you guys at all, definitely drop it in the comments. Share this with somebody who needs to hear this. please, that's actually something that I would love for you guys to do. Subscribe, follow, save this video. Until next time, I love you guys. Bye.